We finish our discussion of traditional controls in this course by examining three controls: TEXTAREA, FIELDSET, and Legend. Additional controls are discussed in the Advanced Topics course. Then we try to think a little outside the box by considering how to use controls without using forms. The text area element. A text area is basically an input element of type equals text that allows multiple lines. That is, if the user hits the Enter key while entering text, this will force a new line, and new lines will be preserved when submitted to a CGI. Syntax: start tag, text area, possibly some attributes, and possibly some content, and an end tag. Both the start tag and the end tag are required. If there is content specified, it is taken as an initial value that the user can override. It is optional. Useful attributes for text area: ID, class, style, title, as in previous elements. Name is the name to pass to a CGI. Cols is a positive integer indicating the maximum allowed line length within the text. The default is 20. Rows, a positive integer indicating the maximum number of lines to display. The default is 2. Disabled is Boolean. The user cannot edit. It can be turned on and off under script control, which might be useful. Form specifies the ID of the related form if this element is not physically contained in the form itself. Read only, another Boolean attribute. It indicates that this control is intended for display only. Max length is the maximum number of characters allowed in the value. Min length is the minimum number of characters required. Also required is a Boolean attribute. It says the user must specify some value. And wrap is hard or soft. Soft indicates that new line characters should not be included when the value is sent to the CGI. Hard says new line characters should be sent. If wrap equals hard is specified, cols equals should also be specified. Possible event handler to provide: on change. That's raised when the control had the focus but loses it, and the value is different than before. Most likely to use event handlers for the form, such as on submit, on reset, and so on. An example: this code, text area, rows equals 3, cols equal 22, end text area. Displays as a box with some strange dots in the lower right corner in Firefox, Opera, Chrome, and the UC browser. Displays as a plain box in Edge. For text area, as for input type equals text, the methods focus, blur, and select are available. The FIELDSET element. Although this element is listed in the controls category, it does not pass back any value to a CGI. Instead, this element is used to group related controls together. Visually, this is usually displayed as a bounding rectangle. The syntax: start tag, FIELDSET, possibly some attributes, and then optionally a legend element, and then some controls, and an end tag. The start tag and the end tag are both required. If there is a legend element, it provides a caption, usually displayed in the box boundary, and we'll see an example shortly. FIELDSET elements may be nested within one another. Useful attributes for FIELDSET: ID, class, style, and title, as in previous elements. Possibly disabled. This is Boolean, and if it's true, all controls internal to the FIELDSET are disabled. Possible event handler: usually none. Event handling is generally done at the control level or the form level. Here's an example. Here we gather half a dozen pieces of information. To show they are all related, we bound them in a FIELDSET. So here's the code. H2, sign up for our trip to Japan. Form: action equals CGI's applicant2.php, method equals post, ID equals foremost, on submit equals return check vals. Now, FIELDSET, and then within that 2 paragraphs. The first, we need your name and contact information, and then an input for your full name, your email, and your phone, using the amper and non-breaking space for spacing things out, line up nicely. The second paragraph, street address, and 3 input items, the address value, the city name, and the state. And then there's the end of the field set. And it displays this way. So sign up for our trip to Japan, we need your, and so forth. You can see it all. The box characteristics, of course, are controlled by style or class attributes. Above, I restricted the length to 40% of the page, otherwise it just stretches to the whole width of the screen. If I add a solid red border of width 3 pixels, it looks like this. The legend element. This element's job is to provide a caption for a field set, so it must be the first item contained within a field set declaration. Syntax, start tag, legend, possibly some attributes, and then the text content, which is the text of the legend, and then an end tag. Start tag and the end tag are both required, and the text content displays in the border of the field set. Again, an example coming up. Attributes possibly useful for legend, ID, class, style, and title. Event handlers to provide none. Event handling is done at the control or form level. Now here's an example. We use the previous example, we simply add a legend and rewrite the initial text a little bit. So H2, sign up for our trip to Japan. The form, same characteristics, and then our field set as before, and then we add legend. Notice the non-breaking space, name and contact information, non-breaking space, and the end tag. And then the rest of the material. So we added some non-breaking space characters before and after the text. This leaves a bit more spacing than the default, and I feel it makes the legend easier to read. The code displays this way. As you can see, a field set and a legend can work together to create a very clear image of fields that are related, to help the user focus in on parts of a form one at a time. Controls without forms. In our discussion so far, we've pointed out that the purpose of controls is to be a way for the user to get information to the browser, text, numbers, images, and more. Then we use forms that include these controls to transmit that information to the server, usually targeting a program on the server called a CGI. The CGI can then build a response page, update a database, or take some other useful action. But there are times you don't need to transmit the information you gather to the server. You can do useful work right in the browser. In fact, there are a number of benefits in these situations. You don't need to be connected to the internet, so this works offline. It minimizes network traffic and improves performance, and it improves security and privacy. User data is not put on the server or sent over the network. So how can this work if you don't have a form? Well, you can do several things. Include a button control that, when clicked, invokes a script that creates and displays a pop-up window. In a non-button control, include an onChange event handler that will invoke a script that creates and displays a pop-up window. In either of the above approaches, instead of invoking a script, you can link to another page. In this case, of course, you must still be connected to the internet. Although, you can link to pages on the same directory on your computer. You can even pass some or all of the user information to that page, although we don't discuss how to do this until the advanced course. Let's look at an example. We'll build on our cafe menu application, the Down-to-Earth Cafe, from the previous video session. The idea now is that instead of transmitting menu choice to the server, we'll use the show bill function to display an order. This could even be sent to a local printer then. So, we get rid of the form and end form tags and change input items that were type equal submit and type equal reset to simple button items that invoke the code formally in the form start tag. And now what used to be input type equals submit is a button, type equals button. And on click, we invoke the show bill function. the text on the button will be Submit Order. And what used to be Input Type Equals Reset is now Button Type Equals Button. And the on-click event handler will basically delete all the items in the order list. The text on the button will be Cancel Order. And this works just fine, but it doesn't show some of the real power. Let's add another feature. Let the user add an item to any of the lists of possible appetizers, entrees, and desserts. Now we'll just work with the appetizers list and trust you can extend the idea to the other two order groups. So, after the three select groups, we add a BR element to start a new line on the page, and we add this code. Non-breaking space, add item, input, type equals text, ID equals new app, size equal 26, which displays like this, with the new item at the bottom of the appetizer list. Well, interesting, but as things stand, if a user enters an item, it won't get added to the appetizer list. We need to take some action. The right place to do this is in an onChange event handler. This event is raised when a control gets the focus and then loses the focus. The browser checks if the before and after contents are the same. If not, the onChange event is raised. So what we need to do is create a new option element that we'll add to the list, create a new text node element that contains the value the user entered. This .value will retrieve that. Append the text node to the new option element. Then get the element representing the appetizer select list and append the newly created option element, including its text node, to the select element, and then clear the this.value for the input element, ready for the next item to be added. That is, and here's our code. Non-breaking space, add item, input type equal text, ID equals new app, size equal 26, onChange equals new opt equals document.create element option. New des equals document.create text node this.value. And then new opt.append child new des. Now, hold app equals document.get element by ID appetizer and hold app append child new opt does the work. And then this.value equals quote quote to clear it out. This displays as before, but now allows users to add items to the menu. Let's watch a demo. So here we are with the new item option, and let's see, maybe yellow grubs would be nice to put in the same category. And just to prove that it got added, we scroll down. There it is. And now we place our order like we would otherwise. Notice that yellow grubs works just fine. And then when we're all set, we submit the order, and there is the output from Show Bill. So it's not likely a restaurant would allow users to arbitrarily add items to the menu, but I hope you can see how the concepts here might be applied to other situations. Also, observe that changes like adding the menu item are limited to the session and are not preserved on the server, something to keep in mind. In this session, we examine the TEXTAREA control element, which allows the user to enter multiple lines of text. And we saw how the FIELDSET and legend elements allow you to help the user with visual clues to related fields. Coming up, in the next lesson, we examine the concepts and implementation of cookies. See you there.